Justin's playing 4 Xenagos in his deck, 2 of one kind, 2 of the other.
Yeah, so Xenagos the Reveler is obviously a card that people are very familiar with. It's the Planeswalker 4 mana. But Xenagos God of Revels, the new Bornegard card, it's an indestructible god at 5 mana, and it has a really good ability where it can give a creature that's in play haste and +X/+X for its power.
All right, well, we are underway. Both players here start out on a land. Justin had a turn 1 Elvish Mystic, which is going to get downed right away by Searing Blood.
Yeah, and Searing Blood is one of the cards that I think also got Brad excited to play this deck because a very effective card against creature decks, and plus allows you to 2-for-1 your opponent at times with a Sated Fire Dancer in play.
All right, well, turn 2, the Mana Dork of Mystic was replaced by a Sylvan Caryatid. Brad immediately then crashed in with a Chandra's Phoenix, putting Gregory down to 15. And then he will manage to make a Xenagos on turn 3 off Sylvan Caryatid. Xenagos will make a Satyr token. And it looks like that will crash and put Brad down to 18 on his own.
Yeah, and Brad does have ways to deal with that Xenagos. He can actually burn it pretty easily. Let's see. Looks like he has a Boros Charm in his hand, along with a Magma Jet, and he drew a Temple and a War Leader's Helix as well.
Yeah, he'd want to expend as few cards as possible here, I would imagine. So he has plenty of burn in hand. Opponent is at 15. But he doesn't need to answer the Xenagos. He's going to start out by...
you know what? I'm not sure he necessarily has to answer it.
He's just going to go with the face.
He might just go to the face, because if he attacks here, Justin down to 13, I think he's got what? He's got 10 damage in his hand?
Well, he's going to scry with Temple. Yeah, he has War Leader's Helix, Boros Charm, Magma Jet, so that is 10.
So he scries first to see what's going on, if he needs to deal with Xenagos right now. But then again, the ultimate ability, it's pretty far away from going ultimate. And just having to deal with a 2/2 each turn, I don't think Brad's that concerned, being at 18 and the fact that he has a Height Helix in his hand.
Yeah, well, it's 2, then 4, then 6, so it's going to add, if he commits to not answering the Xenagos, the game, he's going to have a pretty aggressive game plan. What he probably needs to think of is what are the things that Gregory could do to throw a wrench in that if he just goes straight for the dome.
Well, with Brad's hand, I think Brad has basically a 3-turn clock. He attacks, or 2-turn clock. He attacks Justin for down to 13. Then next turn he drops him down to 11. So it is 3 turns. All in, he has to survive for basically 2 of Justin's attack phases.
Right, so the Xenagos will do 4, then 6 if he doesn't answer it, so that's 10. The question is whether or not Justin can add 8 more damage.
Yeah.
It would take Gore Clan Rampagers probably to do that.
Yeah, Gore Clan Ranger, he does play Flesh and Blood, so Gore Clan Rampager plus Flesh and Blood, plus Xenagos. I mean, Xenagos dropping next turn would be huge because it would be very close to being able to be a creature, plus it would basically increase the clock from attacking for 4 to attacking for 6.
All right, well, Brad's going to put a card on the bottom with the Temple. And he is opting to Magma Jet. This is going to be redirected at the Xenagos, so he's going to play it on the safe side. He has a scry of 2. So kind of planning his next future turns. He has Sacred Foundry, Boros Charm, and War Leader's Helix as his remaining cards.
And so it looks like Brad can still attack here. Drop Justin down, or it looks like he's probably just going to have to attack the Xenagos here.
Yeah, so that's the second half. Chandra's Phoenix will deal the remaining damage. Xenagos hits the yard. But Justin takes no damage for the turn, so that's got to be a success for him, I would think.
Yeah, so I think Justin's got to be happy with that. He basically soaked up a lot of damage with that Xenagos. But he needs to get some beefy threat in play here because Chandra's still going to be... Oh, well, Chandra's Phoenix goes to Mizzy Mortis. And then Ooze, wow. So huge turn for Justin. Not only does he deal with the Chandra's Phoenix, but he's able to activate Ooze and deal with it, plus gain a little life.
Yeah, he deals with it permanently, and Brad would have been bringing it back that turn. So now Justin's at 16. There are no more there's an Elvish Mystic still in the yard. So you can count him at 17. Brad with
I think
10 points of burn in hand.
Brad, I think, really regrets dealing 4 damage to Xenagos now. I mean, obviously, I think it still would have been a much worse position for him if he has to deal with Xenagos tokens and scavenging ooze, but he might have had to do that no matter what.
Yeah, so is Brad locked into now? Does he have to War Leader's Helix the ooze? I don't know if he can actually race with burn at this point.
Well,
like they all can't go upstairs. He'd lose that race.
Yeah, he has Magma Jet, so he can kind of. Yeah, this is where he really needs Fire Dancer because you don't want to expend your burn spells on creatures like
He'd
Scavenging
love
Ooze.
to go Fire Dancer Boros Charm here.
Yeah.
That would be excellent.
I think he's probably, yeah, he might have to actually just go after the Ooze here.
Yeah, otherwise Justin will untap and have a swing of 6. That's a 3-turn clock. Brad only has 10 points of burn in his hand. Even if he did have lethal points of burn, it's not for sure he could race a 3-turn clock.
So it looks like he's not going down that road because if he did, he probably would have done it on his turn when Justin was tapped out so that he couldn't have used the Scavenging Ooze one more time to deal with the Mystic in his graveyard.
Yeah, so it'll be a swing for 5 from Gregory. This will put Brad down to 11. And actually, before damage, he's going to go ahead and eat Elvish Mystic, so Brad will be at 10. Justin moves up to 17 on the life gain.
Yeah, and again, Brad does have 10 points of burn in his hand, so that Helix will give him 4 life. It's basically an 8-point life swing.
And a pass back from Gregory. I'm wondering if he'll go for the Helix here. Gregory's hand actually is just Forests and Elvish Mystic. So if Brad gets that Scavenging Ooze off the turn, Justin does not have a good follow-up clock.
So it looks like he's going to go after him.
I think that's at the Dome. Brad's up to 14 and Justin down to 13.
This is going to be, it looks like he's thinking about an upkeep Magma Jet to Scry.
Absolutely. And he would, this would be hoping to hit Satyr Fire Dancer, I would think. Both cards are on the bottom.
That's tough. So
probably a pair of lands.
Draws for the turn.
And another land.
So Phoenix would have been huge there, but fortunately it just draws another land for the turn. And wow. What another new Born of the Guard
card. So that's Fanatic of Xenagos, not Mogus. So Fanatic of Xenagos is basically it plays a lot like a red-green Loxodon Smiter.
But it has trample.
It's either, yeah. So here it's better. It's a 4/4 trample. Otherwise, it's a 3/3 trample haste. That's a 4/4 on the first turn.
Yeah. So Brad does draw a Searing Blood. But Justin's at 11, so.
Yeah, and Brad's facing down lethal on the next turn, and they will scoop. So that will be game 1 going to Justin Gregory. And I have to think, watching that game, when the threats from Gregory are so efficient, you know, they're all. I feel like there's a lot of pressure on cards like Satyr Fire Dancer to help Brad out in the matchup.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about this the first time we saw Brad's deck, where you mentioned how is the red-white burn matchup versus mono-white, and it's the same thing. I think in general, because Brad doesn't really have a lot of great attacking threats in his deck, Challenger's Phoenix is probably the best of them. He really needs some way to sort of gain value from his burn spells, and Fire Dancer is the best card there. But if you don't draw Fire Dancer, then you're basically in this position where, well, I don't technically want to kill the Ooze, but if I don't, then I'll die to it. So, you know, in that situation, he probably had to just bite the bullet and Helix the Scavenging Ooze. But, you know, it's just 20 damage is a lot just with burn spells, especially when you're getting attacked with efficient creatures like the green deck is capable of. So I think, yeah, it definitely is going to be tough for Brad to kind of win this matchup if he's not able to draw the Fire Dancer.
All right, so looking at, let's start with Brad's sideboard. So one of the things that I'm looking at is he does have a Mizzium Mortis in the sideboard. He also has 3 Chained to the Rocks. Because the red-green monsters deck invests so much resource in one creature, I wouldn't be surprised to see Brad board in Chained to the Rocks, even though it deals no damage here. Catching something like a Pelucranos or even a Fanatic of Xenagos seems like it would be very helpful for him.
Yeah, I don't like the Skullcrack in this matchup. Even though he does have Scavenging Ooze, that's not really how you're going to lose. So I think Skullcrack is probably the worst of his burn spells. Shock isn't great either, but again, being able to shock a Llanowar Elf or a Elvish Mystic could be important. So I think Skullcrack is probably the card he wants to take out. And I agree with you. I think Chain to the Rocks has to come in because just like Desecration Demon against Mono Black, you can't deal with creatures that have toughness greater than 3.
You can't race turn. If they go Karitin to Pelucranos, it's really hard to race a turn 3 Pelucranos with burn spells.
Yeah.
He's a Lava Axe every turn.
Even if he goes something like Fanatic of Xenagos turn 3, Polychronos on turn 4, I mean, you're under a lot of pressure there. You need some way to deal with those beefy threats. So definitely think the Chain to the Rocks comes in for probably the Skullcracks. I actually wouldn't be surprised if the Mizzium Mortars and the Young Pyromancer come in for maybe 2 copies of Boros Charm. Just because I think the Pyromancer could be a little. It's sort of like a pseudo Fire Dancer in that it allows you to throw burn spells at your opponent's face, but at the same time you'll get a chump blocker. So even though you're not technically dealing with the creature, you can chump block some creatures like Scavenging Ooze or Xenagos Reveler tokens, or even Xenagos God of the Revels, because the creature doesn't gain trample. So I wouldn't be surprised if another Pyromancer comes in, because generally Gregory Justin doesn't have a lot of cheap, efficient burn spells like Forked Bolt or something. He basically has Mizium Mortars as his removal.
Yeah. So looking at Gregory's sideboard, I think you just touched on exactly what he should be boarding in here. There are 2 shocks on his sideboard, and to me that seems like exactly what you were saying he would want in the matchup.
Yeah.
Some way to deal with those small. I mean, it answers all of Brad's creatures.
Yeah, he definitely brings in the shocks, because one of the ways he can lose is if he gets these clunky draws where he has the hands of Polychronos, Gorkland Rampager, Stormbred Dragon, and a bunch of lands. Well, that hand plus a shock is actually fine.
Yeah. And with that said, we are underway. Both players start out trading temples. We do see Brad has board in Chain to the Rocks in the matchup.
Yeah, because even a card like Gorkland Rampager, which I think Justin has in his hand, is a problematic card for Brad's deck.
Yeah. Brad, turn 2 shocks for a Sacred Foundry, makes no play. That's hinting of a Magma Jet. Turn 2 is Sylvan Caryatid for Gregory, but Brad will go ahead and Magma Jet send it upstairs, almost just for the scry as much as for anything else.
Yeah, and Brad did draw one of those Chain to the Rocks, so he will be able to deal with the Polychronos that Justin has in his hand and threatening to come down.
So when you're scrying with Brad's deck, he has the 1 Chain to the Rocks. Are they good enough that you want multiples, or do you just want the 1?
I think you want multiples, yeah. I think you want to, because there's so many cards that Justin has in his deck that are good.
All right, Brad shocks again for Sacred Foundry. This time is Chandra's Phoenix. So Brad has brought both players to 16. Now it is Justin's turn, and we'll see which 4-drop he chooses. It's going to be Pelucranos, World Eater.
So this could be a good turn for Brad. He can drop the Fire Dancer that he drew last turn, and he also has the Chain to Rocks for the Polychronos.
Yep, Pelucranos is gone. He's been chained to that Sacred Foundry. Satyr Fire Dancer joins the battlefield, and Chandra's Phoenix puts Gregory down to 14, putting Brad in the lead.
So Brad does have multiple. I think he has at least 1 copy of War Leader's Helix, maybe 2, but he does not have 4 mana currently.
Yeah, if he gets that 4th land and can cast that with the Fire Dancer in play, that would be huge.
Yeah, especially if Justin just drops a Gorkland Rampager right now.
Wow, and he's not going to. He's going to just hit with Mutavault. Is that one of those situations there where you kind of tunnel vision on Blood Rush? It almost seems like making a 4/4 is pretty solid.
Yeah, 4/4 against a deck like Brad's. I mean, it's pretty good. But Brad does draw a 4th land here, so he will be able to either play a second Chandra's Phoenix or have Helix mana up.
Well, we'll see. It's possible that Justin just left up the mana for a trick of his own. He's boarded in shocks. Brad's going to start the turn by swinging Chandra's Phoenix, and he just passes back. So there was no mana left up there. And land number 6 from Gregory now is going to be Rurik Thar the Unbowed. And that's Brad, in response, will immediately War Leader's Helix Justin.
Rurik Thar. It does have reach, I believe. So Vigilance and Reach, a 6/6. Wow, that is pretty good against a mostly burn deck.
Well, Brad can cast a few more burn spells. He's going to go ahead and swing with Chandra's Phoenix here, actually. And that's going to get blocked. And this is, Warlord's Helix will go upstairs to Gregory. And then also at Rurik Thar, thanks to Satyr Fire Dancer. That's I like the use there.
Yeah, so Brad will take 6, but he gains 4, so he's effectively going to drop to 14. But Justin will drop to 4.
And Rurik Thar will be dealt lethal damage.
Yep. So a nice interaction there. And now Brad still gets that Chandra's Phoenix back, too.
Yeah, so he actually just traded a War Leader's Helix for a Rurik Thar.
Yeah, so Brad has 2 Chandra's Phoenix in hand, so if he draws a 6 land, he can actually drop both of them next turn and kill Justin.
That was really the power of Satyr Fire Dancer right there. That was impressive because without the Fire Dancer has effectively dealt 4 damage right now to Justin. So, if not that, Helix would have had to just been gone at the Rurik Thar by itself if it wasn't for Fire Dancer.
Exactly. So Fire Dancer definitely played a critical role right there.
Well, it's hard to evaluate. So with that card, I always want to go back and assess, okay, how much damage did this card deal? We're talking about a burn deck, right? So every card's evaluated by how much damage it's dealt.
Mm-hmm.
How many points of burn is this? And this game, it's at least 4. Mutavault swings. We see Flesh Blood from Mutavault.
So Brad. Oh, wow. And Brad does not draw a 6 mana, so he can only cast one of the Chandra's Phoenixes here.
And Brad's down to 2 here.
And yeah, I think Justin used the Rampager last turn on the Mutavault, and then cast Flesh Blood.
Yeah, so Rampager, Flesh Blood.
So that's how he was able to drop Brad to 2. So let's see
12. Chandra's Phoenix. Then I'll be left back as a blocker. Brad's going to pass the turn.
I think he just had a Mizium Mortars in his hand last turn, I know.
Yeah, I like that play if Justin has something like a shock, but if he doesn't have a way to deal the last 2 damage.
Oh, wow. So here we go. He's going to take 2, overload Mizium Mortars, and then activate Mutavault.
Overloads Mizium Mortars.
That'll do it.
That'll do it. That'll take care of 2. And a swing with the Mutavault. And a well played by Justin Gregory.
So
that was
really
clutch
well
on his
sequenced.
part. Yeah. So takes down Brad Nelson 2 games to 0. I'll tell you what, I thought Brad had that game.
Yeah, it definitely looked good. I mean, if he draws a 6 land, he can lock it up right there. But unfortunately, I don't think Brad did anything wrong that game. I mean, he kind of played everything out according to what he had to do. But Justin made a really good play the turn before where he put Brad down to 2 life, hoping that if Brad just goes block or go, if he draws that other land, he'll be able to overload Mizium Mortars. Or even if he doesn't have a blocker, if he just attacks for 2, he could just Mizium Mortars.
What Brad can do, and this is kind of an out there play, is the turn where Justin swings previously with the Mutavault, Brad can block with Fire Dancer. Just chump. He can chump from 14. If he does it, he survives. Now that doesn't mean it's the right play.
Yeah, I don't think you can chump there.
I'm saying there was a chance if you put your opponent on the Gore Clan Flesh Blood plan.
But because even if he has Gore Clan Flesh Blood, you're still not dead to that. You're dead to that plus shock.
Well, because he'd go to 3, and then the Mizium Mortars and swing would only put him to 1.
Yeah. Oh no, I agree that I agree that in hindsight,
yeah, there's no way
blocking there would have been good.
There's no way you can make that play.
Yeah. But yeah, so.